What if I told you that even the most notorious individuals could have profound final words? Today, we delve into the shocking, emotional, and thought-provoking last statements of Rayful Edmonds, the infamous drug kingpin who once ruled Washington, D.C.'s streets. Before his passing, Edmonds left behind words that not only reflected his journey, but offered a cautionary tale to a generation. This is the story of a man whose empire crumbled, leaving behind lessons in its wake. Rayful Edmonds II wasn't just another drug dealer. He was a legend in the underworld. In the 1980s, Edmonds orchestrated a massive cocaine distribution network in Washington, D.C., making him one of the most feared and wealthy individuals in the region. Known for his sharp mind and business acumen, Edmonds rose to power quickly, amassing millions and creating a criminal enterprise that rivaled even the most organized syndicates. But with power came infamy. His name became synonymous with destruction as the crack epidemic ravaged communities across the nation. Federal authorities estimated that Edmonds and his network brought more than 1,000 pounds of cocaine into the D.C. area monthly, a staggering figure that showcased both his influence and the chaos he left in his wake. By 1989, Edmonds' reign came to a halt when he was arrested and convicted on federal drug charges. Sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, Edmonds faced the consequences of his choices, but his story didn't end behind bars. In a shocking twist, Edmonds became a federal informant, providing critical information that led to the arrest of dozens of fellow drug traffickers. His decision to cooperate with authorities was controversial, earning him both praise from law enforcement and scorn from his former associates. It also raised a pivotal question. Was Edmonds seeking redemption, or was this another calculated move by a master strategist? After decades in federal custody, Edmonds' health began to decline. Reports indicated that he suffered from chronic illnesses, likely exacerbated by the stress of his incarceration and the harsh realities of prison life. As his condition worsened, Edmonds reflected deeply on his past, and it was in these final moments that he uttered the words that would reverberate far beyond his prison cell. According to close sources, Rayful Edmonds shared poignant thoughts during his last days. He reportedly said, "I built my empire on the pain of others. That's something I have to carry with me even now. If I could go back, I'd trade it all for a chance to do right." These words, spoken by a man who once gloried in his power, reveal a stark contrast to the persona he embodied during his criminal peak. Edmonds continued, "If anyone's listening, know this: the streets don't love you. They'll take everything from you: your freedom, your family, your future. Don't let my story become yours." These statements weren't just reflections of regret. They were a cautionary tale from a man who had seen it all. Edmonds recognized the devastating impact of his actions, and in his final moments, he sought to steer others away from the path he had taken. News of Rayful Edmonds' death and his final words sparked intense reactions across social media and within the communities he once influenced. Some saw his words as a genuine attempt at redemption, while others questioned his sincerity. A former D.C. resident posted on Twitter, "Rayful Edmonds was a symbol of the destruction in our communities, but hearing his final words gives me hope that even the worst can change." Another commented, "Words are cheap. His actions devastated generations. Redemption doesn't erase the pain." Law enforcement officials who worked on his case also weighed in. One retired DEA agent remarked, "Edmonds' cooperation saved lives, but it doesn't erase the damage he caused." Still, his final words could serve as a warning to those tempted by the allure of fast money. Rayful Edmonds' story is one of complexity and contradiction. He was a man who caused immeasurable harm, but also took steps to dismantle the empire he once built. His final words highlight the burden he carried, acknowledging the lives destroyed by his choices and offering a rare glimpse into his humanity. Edmonds' legacy remains divisive. For some, he is a cautionary tale, a man who rose to power only to fall spectacularly. For others, he represents the harsh realities of systemic inequality and the cycles of poverty and crime that ensnare so many. Rayful Edmonds' funeral was a private affair, attended only by close family members and a handful of individuals from his past. The ceremony, held discreetly in an undisclosed location, was intimate and somber, reflecting the complex and controversial life of the man it honored. While Edmonds' name once commanded fear and admiration in equal measure, his death marked the conclusion of a life that left an indelible mark on Washington, D.C. and beyond. The decision to keep the funeral private was deliberate. Edmonds' family wanted a service that allowed those closest to him to grieve without the scrutiny of the public or the media. The event was modest, a far cry from the grandeur associated with Edmonds' heyday in the 1980s, when he wielded immense power and wealth. A simple casket adorned with white lilies served as a poignant reminder of the stark contrast between his life's peak and his quiet end. Among the attendees were a few former associates, some of whom had turned their lives around after Edmonds' arrest. One such individual, who asked to remain anonymous, described the funeral as a moment of reflection. Rayful was larger than life back in the day, but seeing him laid to rest like this made it clear that no one escapes the consequences of their actions. It was a humbling experience. Family members, however, painted a different picture of Edmonds in his final years. They spoke of a man who, though burdened by the weight of his past, sought to find peace and redemption. His niece tearfully shared, "Uncle Ray was far from perfect, but he was human. He spent his last years trying to make amends in his own way." This service is about remembering the man he was to us, not just the figure the world knew. While Edmonds' life had been public, his rise, fall, and cooperation with federal authorities making headlines for decades, his funeral was notably absent of public figures or widespread recognition. Many who once benefited from his empire or were part of his network distanced themselves from his legacy over the years. Some feared the associations might tarnish their own reputations, while others simply wished to move on from the shadow of Edmonds' influence. This absence, however, was not lost on those in attendance. One attendee remarked, "When you're on top, everyone wants to be close to you. But when the dust settles, it's your family and a few loyal friends who stay by your side." Rayful's funeral showed us that, despite the sparse turnout, those present took the opportunity to reflect on Edmonds' dual legacy, one of both destruction and redemption. A childhood friend who attended the service shared a heartfelt eulogy, describing Edmonds as a boy full of promise before the allure of quick money and power overtook him. He had dreams like all of us, but the streets got to him. Still, in the end, he tried to make things right. That's the Rayful I want to remember. Rayful Edmonds' legacy is as complex as his life. To some, he was a villain, a man whose drug empire fueled the crack epidemic, leaving communities devastated and families shattered. To others, he was a product of his environment, a man who capitalized on a broken system, and later used his knowledge to dismantle the very network he built. During the service, one of his nephews spoke candidly about this duality. "My Uncle Ray wasn't just the headlines or the court cases. He was a father, a brother, and an uncle who loved us in his own way. But he also knew the pain he caused. He carried that with him every day, and he wanted people to learn from his mistakes." This sentiment was echoed in a letter from Edmonds' eldest daughter, read aloud during the service. In it, she wrote, "You were a man of contradictions, Dad. You gave us love and taught us resilience, but you also left scars we're still healing from. I hope you found the peace you were searching for." In his later years, Edmonds reportedly sought to make amends, though the scope of his efforts remains a matter of debate. Some of his family members shared stories of how he became a mentor to younger inmates, warning them against the allure of fast money and crime. He also reportedly maintained correspondence with individuals from his past, offering apologies and seeking forgiveness where possible. One particularly moving moment during the funeral was when a former associate, now Edith counselor, shared how Edmonds had inspired him to change his life. "Rayful told me, 'You don't want to end up like me, rich in the moment, but empty in the end.' Those words stuck with me, and I've been trying to pass that lesson on ever since." While the funeral was private, Edmonds' death sparked renewed discussions in Washington, D.C. about his impact on the community. Outside the funeral, a small group of individuals gathered to pay their respects from afar. Some left flowers and notes, while others engaged in conversations about the enduring effects of Edmonds' actions. One note left at the site read, "You destroyed lives, but you also tried to rebuild. I hope you found peace." Another simply said, "Too little, too late." These sentiments reflect the broader community's struggle to reconcile Edmonds' dual legacy. Rayful Edmonds was laid to rest in a modest gravesite chosen by his family. The location, kept private to avoid public attention, is described as peaceful and secluded, a stark contrast to the chaos that defined much of his life. Family members placed personal mementos in his casket, a photograph of his children, a handwritten note from his sister, and a small Bible he reportedly carried with him in his final years. As the ceremony concluded, his brother offered a final word. "Ray made mistakes, big ones, but he was also a man who tried to make things right in the end. That's all any of us can do." Rayful Edmonds' funeral was more than just a goodbye. It was a moment to reflect on the complexity of a life lived in extremes. His story serves as both a cautionary tale and a reminder of the power of redemption, even in the face of overwhelming consequences. Though his actions left scars that will take generations to heal, Edmonds' final years, and the words of those who knew him paint a picture of a man who, despite his flaws, sought to leave behind lessons for those willing to listen. His funeral was a private acknowledgement of a life that, for better or worse, left an indelible mark on history. One family member shared, "Rayful wasn't perfect. Far from it. But he spent his last years trying to make amends, even if it was just through words." We hope people will take his message to heart. As the world moves forward, Edmonds' story serves as both a warning and a lesson. His final words remind us of the cost of choices, the weight of regret, and the potential for redemption, even in the darkest of circumstances. Rayful Edmonds' life was a tale of extremes, unimaginable power, devastating consequences, and ultimately, a reckoning with his past. His final words offer a sobering reminder of the fragility of success built on the suffering of others. While his actions cannot be undone, his legacy remains a powerful cautionary tale for future generations. What do you think about Rayful Edmonds' last words? Can someone like him truly find redemption? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that explore the complex lives of infamous figures.